This is interesting in terms of the president comes out and talks about the fact that we have seen the private sector jobs, but the reality is the unemployment numbers remains the same. How do you balance that? Because for the public, they're saying, okay, number doesn't move, so we don't see anything positive happening.
Right. The most important part of this is that the private sector has been creating jobs, and we know that that's a big change from where we were 2 years ago. But what the reality is that the job growth and the economic growth has not been strong enough to bring along the employment growth as much as we'd want. The unemployment rate is a tricky number because not only does it reflect those who don't have jobs, but it also does not include those who have given up looking. So what happens as the economy starts to recover is those who'd given up looking start to look, which means that our unemployment rate kind of sticks where it is for a little bit before we see some movement there as well.
One of the criticism that I hear from people all the time online and talking to them in person is that you have businesses that frankly the government helped with funds and they're sitting on huge amounts of cash. And they're sitting back saying, hey, we're just waiting to see what happens, when the president was saying we're doing this to spur economic growth. We're providing this money so they can actually lend money to people, but they're not lending the money. We talked to the Secretary of HUD, Sean Donovan, a few weeks ago. He said most African Americans are getting their loans through FHA and not from banks. And so what can the administration do when they've helped out these companies, save themselves, if you will, to get on a firm financial footing, but they aren't helping the very people who can actually get lines of credit to create jobs and grow their businesses?
Well, look, it was very important that we stabilize the economy, stabilize the banking sector, stabilize these companies. And the fact is they have been able to maintain some output, and they've been seeing some productivity gains because they haven't brought the employment along. The president just signed the small business jobs bill, which we know is very important. It's got some tax credits and some investments, some incentives for the firms to start doing that investment and start to spending that cash so they can start to generate more growth and bring the employment along with it.
But is there anything more the government can do? Because you hear Republicans say, look, it is not the government that creates jobs, it's the private sector. And so we've spent billions of dollars when it comes to TARP, when it comes to bailouts, when it comes to loans. You talk about those tax credits, but really, what more can government do?
Well, look, let's not sell short the accomplishments that all of those efforts have brought with it. When the president took office, there had been 4 million jobs lost in the 6 months before he took office. In the month he took office, we lost 800,000 jobs. Last September, we lost a quarter of a million jobs. So we have come a long way through those very efforts. There are 3 million jobs that have been saved or created as a result of those efforts. Do we have a long way to go? We still have a ways to go. There are more efforts we can do. For example, the president believes that we should be pulling forward some of our investments in infrastructure. We know that the construction industry took a big hit in this recession. Infrastructure will put those workers back to work and, most importantly, lay the groundwork for investments in our infrastructure so that we can grow the economy on the long haul. I think we can do that together. I think it's a bipartisan issue, and I think it's a good economic issue.
A lot of Republicans are using the very words of the administration against the administration. Last year, Christina Romer, who headed up the Council of Economic Advisors, one of your partners in crime, if you will, on the council, she said we have to take these measures because we believe it will drive unemployment down to 8%. Was it a mistake for administration officials to begin to predict that kind of decrease in unemployment numbers when you really didn't know how these things were going to turn out? And now, frankly, those words are being used against you by your critics.
Yeah, those numbers were done using the state-of-the-art methods with the information we had available at that time. And the reality is we didn't know at that time just how serious our crisis was. But no, I don't regret doing that. I think we have to have a guidepost to where we understand what the impact of our policies may be.